Let's go see what Tucker's doing. What you editing, Tucker? What you editing, Tucker? What you editing, Tucker? What the fuck? What the fuck? What the fuck? This is why we don't let Tucker edit. This is why we don't let Tucker edit. This is why we don't let Tucker edit.
Don't look at it! Keep your eyes shut!
Conversation. Gene Hackman. John Cazale.
Directed by Francis Ford Coppola.
You can already tell it's going to be a great movie.
And it is.
I give this an A-. It's hard to say between A- and a B+. Really on the edge for me, but it deserves the A-.
Yeah, I agree with you there. It also gets an A- from me. It does have its flaws, but ultimately the benefits far outweigh them.
We'll go through some of the flaws, but there's really not much to talk about there. So you're in for a boring review.
If you've never heard about this film, you probably think it's just about people talking.
Well, it really is.
They just talk in this film. Or stare.
It's just one conversation that we keep hearing over and over again.
That is a dumb movie.
It's basically just a Seinfeld conversation that's replayed 10 times.
Really pointless. And the quality isn't even that good.
No, it's shitty. Especially that first shot where they just zoom in from a very wide shot to a single conversation. So shitty. But that's really one of the best parts of the movie. It's one shot. It's a single shot going from a huge fucking frame. That never really was done before, I don't think.
Not to that extent where it's just this huge plaza and then it goes closer and closer and closer and then boom, we're right on these people. It really says a lot about the film too. This movie, I believe, it came out a month before the whole Watergate scandal.
This movie comes out of the culture of the 70s and it's still relatable today, even more so than it was in the 70s, because now the government's actually wiretapping on ordinary civilians. Of course, that's nothing new to us now. I mean, that's been going on for some time, but the conversation isn't the government spying on people, but a certain person in power.
Who has an interest in certain people's lives.
Which could be anybody.
Yeah. I mean, they don't even really say what the director is in charge of. I mean, this whole time we don't know what this has anything to do with. It's because it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter who's doing the spying so much as what's being spied on. Is it just an ordinary conversation or does it actually mean something? For that particular theme, you'd want to watch Rear Window with Jimmy Stewart?
Jimmy Stewart, yeah.
Yeah, with Jimmy Stewart.
The best part about the conversation is very focused, and it's really focused on one character, and that's Henry Call, our main protagonist. Now, it shows us his personality through visual means and not much dialogue.
There's an irony that there's not much dialogue in the conversation. This is a bit of a tragic story for him because as the story goes along, he slowly feels more and more infringement upon his privacy. You see this with his girlfriend at the beginning. She wants to know more about him because she really doesn't know much at all about him. His friends later on want to know more about what he's doing. John Cazale's Stan, he's just like, what are you talking about? For God's sakes, tell me something. At the end, he's so closed off from reality, the last thing that he holds dear is religion to him. The Statue of Mary finally caves and breaks it apart because he wants to know if there's something inside of it. Interestingly enough, visually, it's a hollow statue. I think that's saying something else too, whether God's listening or not. He tears up this apartment at the end. Is anybody listening? Harrison Ford's character says that he's listening on the other end and plays back the saxophone, but we never find the device that's used. At this moment, he also reaches the limits to his surveillance abilities. He was the best, and now he can't find who's hacking him. This, in a bunch of different ways, really shows how tragic his character has finally come to his end. He's no longer the best. He has no faith in anything anymore. No friends, girlfriends. He has nothing at all. Even his house, he shreds it all, and there's nothing left in it.
And it's really his whole world just falls apart in that one final scene. In my opinion, that's one of the greatest character conclusions I've seen in a film.
Here's another great thing about this film. He basically dies as a character at the end, but he doesn't physically die. Cinema just has forgotten about how to kill a character off without physically doing it or doing it on screen. This is the perfect way. What else can we say about this movie?
His character might actually be crazy.
With every A movie, we can speculate as to what could could be reality and what isn't. It's not exactly our place to say this is exactly how it is.
Because really we don't know.
That there's evidence on both sides leads us to our A- ranking.
For instance, in the film we see flashes of blood on a bathroom wall. At this point in the movie we think it was probably from the previous murders that happened because of his surveillance when he did that job in New York. And so we're thinking that because there's no other reason why these flashes of blood and what looks like to be a crime scene is going through
Harry.
Paul's mind. But then we realize that those flashes were from the crime scene that happened right at the end of the film. That wasn't the previous crime scene, that was this crime scene. And then it gives us to question, okay, wait a second, this fucker might be crazy.
But it doesn't really change the story if he is or not.
I really don't know how to look at it though. The way the director dies. Now at the end of the film when all those reporters are questioning, do we know her name? I forget. Do you know? Okay. Sees the girl that he was spying on, and all the reporters are saying, like, you're in charge of the company, and the director died in a car crash accident. We get that the director died in the car crash accident, or the fact that they faked his death. But if you look at the crime scene and what they did, they're stabbing fucking holes in his neck, and he was bleeding all over the place. What does this mean? Because a cop can open a car and be like, oh, this guy died not from a car crash, he's got holes in his fucking face. So I don't know how to feel about that.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a flaw or it's just a little confusing. I'm not sure if those scenes even really add that much to the movie other than advance the plot and tell us kind of what happened behind the scenes. But if you do know, leave us a comment in the comment section. The other scene that we can't quite explain is why he even brings all of his friends over to his work area, why he even allows the tapes to be left out so that people can play them and for that girl to steal them.
In my opinion, this is the flaw in the film.
Like, I can understand where this flaw comes from.
Right.
It's because this is really the last thing to put him over the edge into not trusting people. If he can't even trust his friends and his girlfriend, then who can he trust?
We actually see a side of
Harry.
Paul that we haven't seen before, where he brings the friends over and he's actually joking around with them and talking to his coworkers like he's an actual person. But the scene really feels like
Harry.
brought all these people in his workshop just so the plot can be advanced, just so she can steal these tapes because the film wrote itself in a corner. The major problem that I have with this, we know who
Harry.
Paul is as an audience. We know what kind of actions he would take, and him bringing these guys to his workplace is totally not something
Harry.
would have done.
I mean, it works thematically, I think, and the plot could have been moved along in a lot of other different ways without this scene, so I don't feel like it's detrimental to the movie at all. But it's just one of those things that kind of stands out in my mind is this really what the character would have done? But I can forgive it.
I don't know. I'm still on the fence of it. Even in that scene, we see he has a locked room where he keeps all his shit. But the tapes that he's obsessing over, the tapes that he keeps very close to himself whenever he's holding them, are just right there, spew on the counter. And you're thinking to yourself, why?
I mean, if there's an explanation for it, I'm trying to find it. If he's just so obsessed with these tapes that he can't get his mind off of them and he keeps listening to them over and over again, and maybe he's not even aware that he left them out. Maybe he thought he put them away, but he just took them back out to listen to them again. That could also play into the themes of whether he's crazy or not. The lack of continuity could be the reason why we're confused. Another point for a good movie.
So after he has sex with that girl, or kind of just lays there and she has sex with him, and he has a dream about the girl he was spying on, and it's very surrealistic as dreams should be, and she's up over there and there's clouds and whatnot, and he looks at her and he says, I'm not afraid of death. Now that's a great fucking line because it's something that we didn't know about
Harry.
per se, and it leads us in a little more into his character, and it also lets us know what his line of thinking is in this dream, why he's looking at this woman saying that he's not afraid of death, and that leads us to be like, oh, then what is he afraid of? And then we're like, oh yeah, we got it. But then he says, I'm afraid of murder. That's fine, he is afraid of murder, but the problem is they fucking said it. I wanted to piece that together myself so I can be like, that motherfucker's afraid of murder.
Yeah, well, that's true. He'd just say, I'm not afraid of death. Okay, the audience could piece it together. What about those who couldn't, that are not trying to piece it together? If you just left it at that, it doesn't seem like quite enough. And if you said the whole thing, it seems like too much. I don't know how you would cinematically show this, but if you could have him say, I'm not afraid of death, but I am afraid of, and then just blur his words like, you know, they were listening to a conversation. That way it gets the audience thinking about what is he afraid of without telling us exactly what it is. I don't know if that would work. Like, it works thematically, but does it work cinematically? maybe not, but just my 2 cents. So if you haven't seen this movie, go see it, because we don't want to spoil anything for you.
We're going to spoil the shit out of it.
Don't watch this full review until after you've seen the movie. Dislike this review if you think the NSA likes watching our videos. Or like this review if you like that the NSA is watching you watch our videos.
Have fun.
Have fun watching more of our videos.
Yeah. We see that his landlord went in his house and he really fucking hates. We see that his landlord unlocked his door and went in his house and he really